Hello. I'm so bad at that, like syncing up stuff. This is not my. I can do it okay to a certain extent, but whatever. Hi,
It's
Shahana.
okay. Hi, Trina. So good to see you for
Good
our
to see
next
you. Good.
Hegemony Revealed.
Yes. Welcome to Hegemony Revealed. Gary had to do some work stuff, so he won't be joining us today. But Shahana and I are here, and we're going to do our best. And yeah, we're doing the do. Looks like I'm having some some type of things about problems. I don't know. Anyways,
That's
I,
okay.
I'm getting little flashes about hegemony revealed on Facebook not going or something. I don't know. Anyways, we're here. We're doing our best, and so much to talk about. where
Yeah.
where would you like to start?
Ah, that's a tough one.
Mhm,
But maybe
mhm,
for me, just imagining a world
mhm,
without in block capitals, without neoliberal capitalism and colonial hegemony
mhm,
from the handful of nations trying to gain the world's resources purely for their own benefit
mhm,
and caring two hoots about the rest of the planet, imagining a world beyond that where all of this is gone, the hegemony is gone. The handful
mhm.
of nations are just like other nations, not
Yes.
holding the powers, not manipulating, not oppressing, not savaging, not committing ecocide, genocide, and epistemicide all the time, and
Mm,
gaslighting other countries all the time.
mm.
A world
It would
beyond
be.
all of that.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if they could learn their lesson? Hmm? But I often say that we are led by psychopathic minds. And
Yeah,
as we see the hegemony revealing itself in a really bold, I don't give a F way lately, there's no pretense, there's no hiding. Um, you can go from every country in the world and just see that the desperation of holding on to power is just amazing. But the only hope that I have is that we people stay extremely aware of our own power. And I love that you use the word imagining,
yeah,
because it is so powerful. And lately I've been deep diving into more of the resonance, frequency, and energy. Nikola Tesla says if you want to understand the world and the universe and how it works, speak in frequency, vibration, and energy. And so much of what we've learned has been such a gaslight around science, around who we are as people. All of it has been such a ginormous lie to keep us sort of energetically bound
yeah,
to this particular reality. And what I'm really starting to understand, and I'm talking about it frequently, is our capacity to create is huge. The
yeah,
problem is we've been creating it for hegemony, these powers in hegemony who are taking care of themselves but could care less about everybody else. And that's where we
yeah,
have to stop. Hmm.
yeah. And I love what you say about imagination because the power of collective visualization is immense. And this is not some whoa stuff. It is quantum physics. It is
Mm-hmm.
energy, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
that literally exists. And energetically, if we can come together collectively to reimagine and actively visualize
Mm,
place and planet and and communities in a different state of consciousness,
mm,
it will happen. And it's already in the process of happening. As you said, Trina, that hegemony is not only revealing itself, it is also imploding from within.
that's
The
right.
hegemonic nations are being challenged from within, not only by global south, but from within their own hegemonic countries. And the propaganda is failing. The masks are slipping. The facades are no longer holding up.
Mm-hmm.
So the time for collective visualization is very, very much here. And I think imagination can play a huge role when we pull that force together in a collective, uh, in a, from our collective source of wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And actually, I love the you use the word wisdom because it is old. All of this that we're talking about is so old, and ancient civilizations have been talking about what we just were talking about right now
Yeah,
from the very beginning. And science, the field of science, the hegemonic field of science, is finally catching up, but they all already knew. They're deciding that they can't hide it anymore,
yeah,
and so everybody is creating and vibrating differently. My catchphrase lately has been vibrate higher,
yeah,
and yeah, that's because in the law of energy and vibration, resonances match. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
and you know nothing at a lower vibration can take from you what you don't give. Okay,
yeah.
but you have to lower yourself. I think of every relationship I've ever been in. You
Oh,
have to
yeah,
lower, you have to
yeah,
lower your energy output in order to match to make it work. Okay,
yeah,
but when you're vibrating higher, you don't match. It doesn't work.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and so we see that in every aspect of our lives. We just haven't had the right language, and we've been extremely distracted. Hegemony is brilliant at keeping us distracted, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And, and from that, I think you've again brought up a very important point. One is our collective imagination. Other is, like you said, vibrating higher. And then distraction. Because propaganda is meant to distract all the time from the actual root causes of what is happening.
Mm,
That's the job of propaganda. That's why you have tycoons buying up media houses
mm,
so that they can literally disseminate propaganda at will in a way that will reach the masses and keep them in that haze in that hazed days of propaganda without realizing what they are being a part of.
mm,
And now you can see that slipping, and now you can see that it's almost like a collective, I wouldn't call it awakening yet, but definitely a collective rupture where there
mm,
is a lot of things are being shaken up and a lot of taken for granted assumptions by the hegemony have been uprooted. And you can see that it all goes back again to our planetary land because all of this is about power and energy and economy tied to the people, tied to the place, and tied to the land. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about expropriating land and the resources lying beneath so that a handful of nations can continue to militarize and expand their military industrial complex and thus retain power.
Mm-hmm. And like what we were talking
So,
about off camera, this new carbon footprint bullshit that they are
yes,
creating to try to
yes,
hide the extraction. And I wish Garry was on here because I know he could have a
I
lot of
know.
input about that. This extraction process and planning. Oh, well, we know it's bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a way to buy off or use swaths of land in not our country, but in the
Yeah,
countries where
yeah,
we want the resources, like
yeah,
Africa and India and places like that. Let's go there and let's talk about this carbon footprint stuff and how we're going to what is it called? Offset.
carbon capture. Yeah,
Yeah. And give credits. What kind of
carbon
nonsense is
credits. Yeah.
that?
I
It's
mean, it is like say, I can rob a bank if yeah, I can drop a few banks, it's okay. But you know what? I'm also paying to build an orphanage.
that it's
It's
nonsense.
insane. And of course, this is all a kind of, a facade to A, expropriate land,
Mm-hmm.
to displace tribal and indigenous people from their own land. So you
Yes.
again have displaced masses of poverty struck people who don't know, who don't even understand what hit them and why.
Yeah.
And
They
then
didn't do this.
they don't do this. They don't need it. They don't dig up their land.
No.
So, so the tribals of in the states of India, which are very very mineral rich, like Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, and those states which are extremely mineral rich, have been displaced so that their land can be dug up. And they were told this is all in the name of development, of course, and progress, of course. And they're like, we don't want it because our land is our mother. We don't dig her up for progress and development. I'll share that article with you on this link later.
Yes.
And
Yes, please.
that's exactly what is happening in the name of carbon capture and carbon credit. And I don't know what BS is being sold. And then so that you can go on creating more products that are not needed and sell it to people who don't want it, market it in a way that is toxic and actually repulsive. If you've seen the latest Zara ad, it's repulsive.
Oh gosh, I
Oh,
saw that. It was so but Zara was off. I boycotted them a long time ago
no,
when they
I've never
showed
even
the little
bought anything from there. I don't care about brands. I give two hoots. I've
uh
never bought anything from there. But this was repulsive, obscene, and I don't even know what else. The words fail me.
you know how I always say I need to understand why? I did some research
Yeah,
and I went and digging about the owner of the company that owns um, H&M. And yeah, pretty nasty background. It's a Spanish guy, Ortega, I think the last name is. People can go do their own research, but
I
it's
know.
really
Let them do it.
easy research.
Yeah,
So I found a lot of information about how he had some Zionist guy speak at some function that he hosted, and there was a lot of protest around it. And so you can always the energy always directs you
yeah,
to the underlining ideology and vibration of
Yeah.
the person.
Yeah.
So this company H&M has a race issue, mentality issue.
Yeah.
The little boy wearing being called a monkey or wearing a monkey shirt. There's all kinds of like internal internalized issues around race, and because you can't be that stupid. And it's always like this sly way of continue to program the masses who are trying
Yeah.
who are waking up
Yeah.
to make them believe things about people. And
Yeah.
right now
Yeah.
that was overt. That was an
Yeah.
overt attempt to downgrade the the loss of life in
Yes,
Palestine.
that's happening. Yes. Yes. And
And
you
it's
know,
not working.
it's not working. And what is happening is it is not only revealing or rather ripping off the facade of so called human rights and so called democracy that, the white people apparently brought to the savages.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they set out to civilize the world. But you know what? I think, apart from maybe a handful, the world is pretty much fed up. They are fed
Yeah.
up with this facade, with the lies, with the gaslighting, with the expropriation, with the extraction, with the constant genocide in
Hmm.
some form or the other, in some disguise or the other, all because a handful of doddering old white men think white lives are more important than the rest of the planet.
Right.
And
And
a
I'm not
couple of white nations are more important than the rest of the planet.
right. And I'm not going to take certain other groups off the hook because they are practicing the same type of behaviors like China
Oh, yeah.
have and India. Um,
Yeah.
and
India
you
has
know,
become extremely separationist and extremely
Islamophobic.
fascist.
It's
Yes.
Islamophobic
Islamophobic,
too.
fascist. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
And that's
so
spreading all over the world.
exactly. And I just, I just wrote Medium paper about it because I watched, I always say cultivate a polymathic mind. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is learn things for the sake of learning so that you can connect dots later. And so I follow a few different content creators on YouTube, and one of them is talks about Islam. And I'm the furthest person from any religious faith whatsoever because I find them all to be problematic when the
Yeah.
essence of
Same here.
spirituality, yeah, the essence of spirituality has been removed in order to use it as a tool, like Israel used Judaism
Yeah.
um, as a cover for their horrible behavior. And the word anti Semite became their weapon against anybody
Yeah.
that called them out when they're really not technically even Jews. I'm just
Yeah.
that historical
Yeah.
background is problematic. And if people had a polymathic mind, they would go and actually research and understand that, the founders of Israel were Polish. And actually,
Yeah.
Netanyahu changed his last name and he's Polish and he was from Boston. So it's like there's a lot of information that people are not aware of because they're used to taking the media at face value and thinking that they can trust that. But,
Yeah.
I am so grateful to the Gen Zers and the TikTokers of the world for correcting history and
Yeah.
providing the receipts. So
Yeah.
it's not these people are extremely good researchers, and it's even inspired me to dig deeper. And I'm a
Yeah.
digger. I like to
Yeah.
understand. So really this guy, I posted it on LinkedIn here, you can see it on my page. He interviews a Christian woman who is talking about the misinformation of of Zionists, I mean Zionism to Christians. and actually how he showed a video of Zionists spitting on Christians walking in Jerusalem. And so a lot of people just don't understand Palestine was a haven for all people, Christian,
Mm.
Jew, you know, Arab, it didn't matter. People all lived together in relative peace until this agenda started. And
And
so,
this agenda was actually all about keeping that part militarized because
mm,
of the rich oil resource that lies beneath.
yeah,
It is
that's
purely because of that. So
yeah.
US, of course, wanted to have that as in their control so that they would have greater control over the Middle East. Because
Hmm.
right now the Suez Canal is under Egypt's control.
That's right.
So they want another canal that will be under US control. And
Hmm.
Israel is just an outpost and an excuse to keep that area militarized for the oil beneath. It has got nothing to do with anyone. They are using unfortunately, the sentiments of a benighted Holocaust victims. They're using their sentiments and the narrative to just as a kind of a facade to
Hmm.
go for the fossil fuel in an increasingly energy depleting world. In an increasingly energy depleting world, they need those resources to stay on top of their G7 boys club.
Hmm. And the thing is we've had technology for a very long time that would render that source obsolete and unnecessary. You know, I wrote an article about Tesla, and Rife, Dr. Rife, and their understanding of energy and frequency. Tesla wanted to give free, had a way to give free energy to the entire planet, but they didn't want that. They didn't
Yeah,
want to use the resonance of the planet in order to supply free energy to everywhere. And if you go
because
back to
then, yeah,
yeah, you go back to the
yeah,
Sumerian tablets, and they talk about how energy was created and everything. This oil, this extraction of dead things, I always say keep dead things in the ground because that's where they
keep them
belong.
where they belong. Yeah,
Keep Yeah, it's messed up the natural order of the world and how we exist on the planet.
and it's created, falsely created, a handful of nations who have used other nations' resources to
Mhm.
benefit themselves and render those other nations, I don't even know what to say. There isn't a strong enough word for what colonization and neocolonialism now is doing. And it's just the baton has passed from Britain and Europe to America. It's
Yeah.
all the same. And it's increasingly getting worse because the desperation is increasing. As natural resources deplete and decrease, the race to grab those last dregs of oil from the ground
Hmm.
is heating up. And and you can see who's paying the price.
Right.
The poor
It's a
people living on the land, the poor
well, you
people who
yeah,
have to be exterminated for that land to be acquired and dug.
right. It's a massacre.
So,
It's a
so
global
it's okay.
massacre.
So massacre them because I guess you know what they think that, oh yeah, once we develop that, once the oil rigs are there, once the oil is flowing down the pipeline, all the way to the United States and wherever freaking they want to take it, after a couple of years, people will just forget. But you know
Not
what?
this
The
not this
mothers
time.
won't, the brothers won't, the fathers won't, the daughters and sons won't. All they're
Mm.
doing is giving rise to more and more Hamas. And you can't blame them. You
Yeah.
can't blame you can't blame resistance.
No. And the thing is that I think we're starting to see resistance to be the norm, and they're really, I mean, when I hear our world leaders, Biden recently said something insane about, well, I'm a Zionist too, or something like that. And the justifications, and the U.S. was the only person that vetoed
Yeah, they vetoed, yeah.
a ceasefire.
And UK abstained. So amazing,
The guy,
isn't it?
well, what I found interesting was the multi use of racism, because the guy who was in charge of doing the veto was a black guy, and he
Yeah,
literally
some raw
his hand,
something, raw,
yeah,
raw something.
yeah, his hand was shaking. He was
Yeah.
shaking.
And yeah, and you know what? This is also, I don't know, but I kind of feel, and tell me what you think, that
Hmm.
the white people have this knack of using colored people as the front face, as the victim, as the beating board. That here is a black guy actually
Yeah,
vetoing. So they're with us.
yeah, yeah. But they sure do, and it's they did the same thing with the dean of Harvard, or
Yep,
it was, and there were three heads of major universities, but the media attacked her the most out of
yep,
all those three. They all three said the same exact thing at the Congress. Really stupid
yep,
attempt to get them to admit, something that is ridiculous, and it's just shocking. It's just shocking
yep,
that they think that we're really all that stupid now. It's
yep,
like
exactly.
they're kind of disconnected from the fact that it wasn't just a few people who got good at technology. It wasn't just a
Yeah,
few people who started educating themselves in and out of universities. And we're connecting dots. That's why
yeah,
having like this like polymathic mind is
yeah,
vital. Is vital
yeah, yeah,
because you can't be bamboozled by
yeah,
this type of propaganda anymore,
yeah,
unless you want to be willfully ignorant. And there are people out there who are willfully ignorant.
yeah, yeah. That's that's another, I think, an aspect very important. They are deliberately choosing to stay ignorant because, and this is something I feel like I let me know what you think,
Mhm.
because the story painted. So, I'm going to go back to around, I think, 1948. I may be a little wrong about the date, but this is Truman and his point four of the
Mhm.
speech, where he talks about America being this beacon of democracy and civilization to the
Mhm.
rest of the world because they did not have a good enough reason to show the world why was the world in absolute dismal poverty except for a handful of European nations and America. And if they had been truthful, then they would have had to admit that all the wealth that they looted from the global south countries like Africa and India had actually supported their industrial revolution while completely decimating those countries. So
Mhm.
their so-called wealth and power and technology and everything was built on loot, on thievery, on
Mhm.
deceit and colonization of other people's lands and other people's bodies. Don't forget the Atlantic slave trade that built America. Don't
Yeah.
forget India's wealth that built the European Industrial Revolution. So they would have had
Yeah.
to admit it. Rather than admit that, he passed on this story about being a beacon of democracy and whatever bullshit.
Yeah. We're the
And
good
of
guys.
course, people lapped up that story because it helped them to feel good that on this arrow of progress, America was leading the poor nations to glory and showing them the path to being civilized.
Mm-hmm.
Now that story is shattered, but there are still people who can't believe it is shattered. They would
Yeah.
rather not believe it is shattered. They would rather not see the deceit that their governments after governments have wrought and brought about to the rest of the planet in their name, using
Mm-hmm.
their taxpayers' money, and that their country is built literally by decimating other countries. They would rather
Yeah.
not see it. It's too tough a pill to digest.
Yeah.
So let's stay ignorant. Let's believe all the propaganda because that's easier. That helps me sleep at night.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, patriotism is nationalism is a type of religion for some people, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's what helps them sleep at night,
yeah,
and it's but it still proliferates a disconnect from self, and we all, it's an externalization of
yeah,
of their wishes and dreams and all that stuff, but they don't want to deal with what's
yeah,
real and what's going
yeah,
on with them and how they contribute to the pain of the globe. Because
yeah.
what I truly feel is that everybody is feeling this on a cellular level. Everybody's feeling this on a
Sure.
cellular
I
level.
mean, look at the
Eh,
rise of depression. Look at the size of rise in suicides. Look at
Yeah,
the rise in drug addiction. I mean, why? They are all ways of escaping the reality that we have to confront and face.
yeah, and it's toxic, and we help create it. Our
Yeah,
our Even though we didn't do it on purpose, it wasn't like we
yeah,
were even willful
yeah,
participation of it, because when you have hegemony, and I tell my clients this all the time, it's not your fault at this point.
yeah,
All these things, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and all that stuff, that's all an elaborate gaslight. you were
yeah,
never it was never meant for you to succeed in the way that
yeah,
they
yeah,
have shown you.
yeah,
The structures of family, everything is been to oppress somebody, you know
yeah,
and it doesn't help to beat yourself up. It doesn't, because then you lower your vibration to exactly where
yeah,
they want you to be.
yeah,
So the most important thing, I just reposted a podcast I did on the difference between shame and guilt.
yeah, yeah,
And I call shame the dark cousin of narcissism. If you're feeling shame, you're also narcissistic in a way, because that tells you're telling the whole world that that's just the way it is. That's just who I am. There's no way for me to shift or change. I have a fixed mindset, and that's what narcissists have, a fixed mindset, right? And so it seems like it's opposite because they're beating themselves up, but really, that's not an excuse. It just gets you out of the accountability to do the
yeah,
work, to
yeah,
change your
yeah,
behavior. Now, guilt, on the other hand, is healthy, because then
yeah,
you have an awareness of self, and you have a
yeah,
way to make amends. You did something wrong. Let's fix it. And
yeah,
so here we are. Hegemony
yeah,
is
yeah,
a completely fixed mindset that would rather dig their heels in and try to squeeze tighter and harder,
yeah,
rather than to pull back, re-examine what's been they created, and say, okay, we effed up, you
yeah.
know and that's with the assumption that there are some humans there, but I'm really
I
questioning it.
doubt it. I
I
doubt
do,
it
I don't
because,
feel it.
yeah, I don't feel it either. Because
No.
again, if you see the handful visible people taking decisions, like I said, are all doddering old men who know
Mm-hmm.
their years are
Mm-hmm.
running out and who don't really give a damn about anything except retaining that power till their last breath. And
Yeah.
the and the saddest part is they have not only plundered nations, countries, and created havoc through genocide, ecocide, epistemicide, and all everything else. They have created a system and a mess that is going to take a generations to clean up.
Mm-hmm.
And what and like you said, when we vibrate higher, we are already creating the foundations of a very different planetary system
Right.
that is at a completely different level of human and beyond human connection that
Mm-hmm.
is built on communication and empathy and collaboration, not on expropriation and extraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I don't want anything
I,
else. I
I
don't want
think
any more
people are fed up.
plastic. I don't, you know,
No,
this TikToker said, uh, she said, you know, America effed up. They messed up because now they've just made it much easier for, they've made everybody poor. They've made everybody poor. They've made everybody um, to the point where they have already given up so much luxuries and so many basic needs. That's no problem to boycott Christmas. It's not special
yeah,
anymore. It's
they don't
okay to
have the
boycott.
money to support business anymore.
Yeah, so everybody's so poor now that they can't make their needs met. So they're like, screw it, you know? And
Yeah,
it's just even people who once could afford those things are being able to afford them less.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they're getting on board with the different disenfranchised people because now they see them losing their livelihoods and
yeah,
their ability
yeah,
to survive. So
yeah,
we're I'm let's talk about community.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's what's on the plate now. They just are pushing everybody together in their divide and conquer techniques that are no longer
Yeah,
sustainable or working. And if
yeah,
I invite everybody who watching this podcast to really consider giving up the tradition of Christmas and going to help somebody else. You know what I mean? Not monetarily. You don't need to go buy a bunch of stuff or anything like that. Even just going to feed people, take that money, take that resource instead of buying more plastic and buying more shite you don't need. Contribute to the uplifting of humanity and screw states like Texas who are making it illegal to feed the homeless. You know, I can't. This guy, he's gotten so far 77 violations from Houston because him and his organization and his family are out feeding hungry people.
wow. So it's almost, you can see the intentions clearly now. It
Hmm.
is to keep people so hungry, so desperate,
Yeah,
so oppressed that they don't have time to think about anybody else but about just putting two meals on the table. I'm not
that's
even
right.
saying three square meals. Most people can't afford three square meals anymore.
Right.
So the desperation keeps people tied to their job for the pittance that they get,
Hmm.
while people like, Elon Musk and the rest are laughing all the way to the bank.
That's
So
right.
yeah, we have the unfortunately psychopaths. Because psychopaths are so power hungry, they have risen to power because that's constantly what they're seeking and what they're grabbing. So
Hmm.
they have, but they are still fewer in number than the rest of us, than the communities. And what you
That's right.
said about vibrating higher. radical and collective imagination, and really coming together as communities, irrespective of our nations, of our states, of our skin color, of the languages, of the culture, is the only way forward out of this whole mess created for the last 5 centuries by a handful of doddering old white men.
Yeah, it is the only way forward. And I think what
Only
it
way
is
forward.
everybody has to, there's a collective need for healing on an individual level
Yeah,
in order to
yeah,
have that door, that open up again in our hearts to
yeah,
trust. And I think
yeah,
that's the biggest issue right now. We have been taught to distrust so much. We also have been taught to survive in a ruthless way, and
yeah,
I think that the only way it's going to really change is for, get some coaching, get some therapy, get something where you have a person who's guiding and reminding you who you really are, and
yeah,
that will change the resonance. But so many people don't even feel like they can afford coaching services
yeah,
or anything like that. So it's the reinvestment in self that matters. So
yeah,
you can put something as you can cancel Netflix, okay?
yeah,
uh, you can cancel some subscription that is really you're not getting anything out of, you know cancel cable, honestly. The
I
fact
know,
that it
honestly.
fact that it costs, I remember one time my mom telling me when that she paid $170 a month for cable television. Yeah, that's
And
ridiculous.
then you have Fox News screaming at you.
Exactly. And you have a bunch of lies and propaganda anyway. They're
Yes,
not telling you what's actually happened. They're telling you some version that fits their narrative and leaves out
yeah,
really vital information about the
yeah,
why, you
yeah,
know? So cancel all that and invest in yourself. Invest in your healing, because once you do that, that's what's going to spread out to everybody else,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely, absolutely.
So
And the more we come from a place of, so, there's rage and anger. I feel it, you feel it. But
mhm,
how we see, it's all energy, and energy doesn't vanish or die, but
mm-mm,
energy can be transmuted. So,
mhm,
how do we utilize the rage and anger? What shape and form do we give to that rage and anger matter?
mm, yeah,
Do we
yeah,
turn that into bitterness and despair and hatred? Or do we turn that into, literally white hot anger that wipes everything clean and helps
yes,
us to see very clearly what needs to be done, what we can do collectively and individually? Because that in that anger is also the seed of a future vision that we hold. And we are
mhm,
angry because we know that world is possible and it is being held back. So we strive for that world, for that possibility, for
right,
that seed, and connecting that seed to each other, and building that network, building that community, weaving
uh,
that imagination. That's how our anger can become the biggest tool that can literally, because again, hegemony is just a facade. There is nothing concrete in it. So
yes,
all we need to do is build a web, weave a web of strong community and empathy that will just rip off this facade, that will just destroy this facade and, throw the ashes to the wind.
yeah, and
We don't
and
have
that
to.
ashes, when a forest burns, it grows back stronger. you know it's
Yeah,
like those
yeah,
ashes are what's seeding the next generation. And I think that fear of change,
Yeah.
is putting people in anger. The fear of change will put people to a place where they think there's no end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was commenting on somebody who said, shame on us, again the word shame, for not
Mm.
doing anything about this. And out of kindness, I was trying to explain to him the difference between the two. And it wasn't a justification. I think that there's no justification for the genocide that is happening and has happened globally for hundreds
Yeah.
of years. There's no
Yeah.
justification. But what I don't want people to do is do what they've always done, which is go into anger. I don't believe, since you said it, energy doesn't die. If I'm an energetic being, I don't die. Therefore, my
Yeah.
energy is somewhere around in the
Yeah.
ethers, you know,
Yeah.
doing something. And I think those children in Gaza and those people who have died are there. And what we need to be sending to them is love
Yeah.
and caring, not our anger, not our
Yeah.
despair, you know.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
then that's way they find their way back and help
Yeah.
us and lift
And
us up.
I think that's where, anger and rage, when transmuted, like I
Hmm.
said, can give rise can give rise to intense connection of hope,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
now you have collectives, communities around the globe gathered around the same cause,
Yes.
angry about the same thing, not
Yes.
divided by race and caste and religion and, color and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an immense power that hegemony has always tried to destroy. Hegemony has always tried to build individuals and
Mm-hmm.
keep saying that humans are selfish individuals. No, they're not. They are
Mm-hmm.
not. That is the story seeded deliberately to keep people apart from each other, atomized, conflicted, lonely,
Mm-hmm.
competitive, and constantly in an aggression and mistrust of the other.
Yes.
Because
You
that
said it.
wouldn't, togetherness and community would not serve the hegemony. They
Yeah.
want people scared and lonely and depressed and despair.
Right. And I don't want people to think that I don't get angry, and I'm not angry about it. I'm furious about it sometimes.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
furious. I'm just saying that I look at that emotion in a particular way because horrible things have happened to me in my life too.
yeah,
And I took that anger and transmuted it and said, okay, this is the direction I'm going with it. I'm not going to
yeah,
stay here. I'm going to take
yeah,
that and put it someplace else and
yeah,
put it someplace productive. There's productive anger, and then there's the senseless, barbaric, berserker
yeah.
type of the stuff that
Lashing
is
out.
lashing out, and a lack of self-regulation and things like that. Anger is a is justifiable and useful emotion like all the rest of them are. It's just
Yeah,
how do you direct it? How do you direct it?
yeah, yeah,
I think this is a good time to wrap up. What do you think?
yeah. I think so too. So, what
What?
what would be your closing thoughts on everything that we've discussed and not discussed? Maybe.
Yeah, what I just said. Everybody's anger and is justified. But now
Yeah,
let's direct it to unity rather than division. Let's stop falling for the
yeah,
same tactics
yeah,
and stop looking at surface things because as a black woman, as a black person, my skin tone has been weaponized, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm not a scary person. Even my ex tried to weaponize my color because
yeah,
I wouldn't accept abuse. I wouldn't
yeah,
accept the gaslighting. And so
yeah,
it's really important that we stop not seeing color or things like that, but
yeah,
stop internalizing things like that as a problem,
Yeah.
and use it as a cause for celebration and connection. What about you,
Yeah.
Shahana?
Yeah. So I want to wrap up today with a couple of thoughts. One is going back to what we started with, the very, very strong power of collective imagination, visualization coming from our deepest source of wisdom, collectively in community. And picking up on anger, using the rage, the anger, not as a tool of hatred and bitterness or to lash out at any being, living or dead, but that anger as a cleansing energy that
Mm,
that burns away every remnant of the dredges of humility and everything that comes with hegemony. Seeing hegemony clearly for what it is and doing exactly all that hegemony doesn't want us to do,
mm, yes.
which is to be in community, to be supportive, to be caring, to go and see who is in need, to meet each other's needs before you know, buy or look at yourself, to soundly reject all the propaganda and the plastic that hegemony wants to sell and see it clearly and do everything that hegemony doesn't want us to do. Love, listen, laugh, be in joy, give each other support, be in empathy and be in connection, be in community. And never mind nation state borders, those are imaginary lines that don't exist.
Thank you. That was beautiful. That's how we end it,
Thank
folks.
you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
thank you to everybody who was on here. And also thank you for rewatching this replay. I know this time is probably harder for a lot of my people on the US side. Shahana's in Malaysia right now visiting her beautiful daughter and grandchild. So thank you for making the effort to be on here today. Um, and yeah, thank you, everyone. Please take those words that Shahanda ended with to heart, and let's vibrate higher. Okay?
Yeah.
All
Bye.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
Huh.
Okay.